Welcome to the Verse Mortgage Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Gross. We do this every week with top producers in the business, managers, vendors, helping to be more effective at serving our customers. Really excited to have today when I say a longtime friend, at least 30 years, 29 years minimum. I've known this guy, not just known him as a top producer, one of the real thinkers in this industry, one of the people who really knows what we're doing and is committed to success for himself and his team. Mark Klein with Citywide Mortgage. Mark, it's great to catch up with you again.
Bill, it's great to catch up with you. And again, I keep going back to our days at the Todd Duncan Masters events from so many years ago, and those were just the best days. I miss it.
We've been together so long that the guy that was the new mortgage kind of consultant coach guy back when we met is now like almost, I don't know, is he still around? I mean, I see him from time to time, but new people don't know who he is because he was around so long. It was like new guys that replaced him, I guess, for the newer people, huh?
Yeah, he is still around, I think, but I definitely think he's slowed down. And the mortgage industry, as you know, has taken it has really taken some wicked turns for the better and for the worse, and it continues to do that. So.
Well, for my money, and we reacquainted recently at a convention, but you and I have been in touch from time to time over the years. One of the things about you that I've always appreciated, that I appreciated with Todd when we started this, and maybe why he would have a tough time appealing to the newer generation is, it seems to me that the newer generation doesn't want to work hard, and I think you and I should be out of the business. There should be some young whippersnappers kicking our butt every day with pure energy and drive. The problem is they don't put the work in to really learn the product and develop the relationships, and as a result, Todd's still doing coaching, you're still doing loans, I'm still selling real estate, and these young guys, I think, unless they take a shortcut that doesn't exist, they're not going to catch up until we decide to back off the throttle a little bit. So let's talk about that. As long as I've known you, you've always been working hard to improve your game, your market, your edge. You've always looking for that. Tell me about that in the mortgage industry and reverse mortgages specifically today.
So you're right, Bill, and I agree with you 100% that today's younger generation, most of them, not all, I mean, there's some really, really hardworking, millennials out there, or whatever you want to call them today, that are doing a not bang up job. And by the way, I think if you work hard, and the old rules still apply. How much are you going to be out there producing, and how much are you out there being proactive, activities? I think all that still applies, and I think there's lots of business to get. But most, and I'll say most, but I don't know how different that was from our generation. They don't want to put the hard work in, and they don't want the rejection that you get, and they don't, all that stuff. But it's an opportunity out there. But that being said, where my career's changed and it's still there, I'm still doing forward mortgages, and I've always worked with CPAs, financial planners,
right,
financial professionals, some realtors, and then I manage my database. That's always been my model. I've always had those pillars, and it continues to be the pillars. But it's interesting. Today, I probably spend 80% or more of my time educating financial professionals on reverse mortgages, even though that's only maybe 10% of my business. And it's kind of a passion of mine.
Well, I remember, again, we know each other for 30 years or so. That was your unique niche back then, working with CPAs and financial planners. That was not common, and working with professionals. I think today, fast forward 30 years, that, you can't compete with Google and Facebook ads for the general population, but expertise and deep relationships are something that you've accumulated and have leveraged and continue to leverage in your business. And I think that's what financial professionals do and should appreciate, is that expertise. So let's talk a bit. It's one thing to say you target them, and you've been working in that field for a while. What value do you create, or what's the target you're trying to create for the financial professionals that you do work with? You said education. Is it primarily education and how they can use your service?
Yeah, well, whenever you deal with a trusted advisor, you've got to build trust, and they got to have trust in you, because remember, they're referring their clients to you.
Right.
And if you screw up, they screw up, right? So it's pretty simple. So I want to give them a safe place to go for mortgage services. That's always been my motto. That's worked. But again, I made a switch in the past few years. I've been involved with looking at reverse mortgages since 2005. I started, and I got more involved as the years went on. And today I'm highly focused on that. And I'm just trying to give these financial advisors and professionals information and alternatives to help their clients and give them tools. They don't, and it's amazing. I spoke to the other day a life insurance guy, a very high level life insurance person, disability life insurance person. And we're looking at, he's looking at it. He goes, well, how could a reverse mortgage help me? I heard they're horrible, right? And, and I explained to him, I go, that was maybe 30 years ago. There were some issues with pricing and some deception and some other things, but that's not the case today. Reverse mortgage has problems. And I go into it. I wrote a book. I have a presentation. We do all that. And I go into scenarios with them, like, okay, well, tell me, what are you going to do? And I can rattle off some scenarios and I'll say, here's your options. Right? And they go, they didn't even thought of it.
Right.
I sat down with this financial advisor, professional, and I gave him five illustrations. I gave him a HECM first. We used the scenario of one of the clients. I gave him a proprietary product. I gave him a second. I gave him a line of credit, just a basic line of credit for his client to help with their cash flow issues and all the issues with it. And I gave him a bunch of illustrations and amortization schedules, and I educated him on it. And I get to see, I saw him, we were on a Zoom, and I'm sharing all this stuff, and you just see his mind just going all over the place, saying, oh my God, I had no idea these tools are available. And for those loan amounts, that lines of credits, all those things, it's pretty amazing.
So for you to get permission even to talk to them, in my experience, you have to overcome two challenges. One is, and you've been around like me for a while, kind of the stink of the original reverse mortgage program, right? Like that has, it's one of those things where attorneys, financial planners may know nothing about it other than 30 years ago, somebody got ripped off by reverse mortgage. It has nothing to do with today's product, but that sting and that stink still exists today on the product. True or false?
True. And one of the things I do, and I've been in rooms with webinars I'm doing a live one in particular, but I'll do it with a webinar too. I'll sit here in the conference room, and first thing I ask them is, goes, how many of you have heard about reverse mortgages? How many of you thought they're evil or not done right, or then a certain amount raise their hands, and then I'll say, and I'll walk around the room and I'll say, okay, why?
Nobody knows. They can never answer it. They can never answer it.
I heard they're bad.
Exactly. So I think that, and when I launched this podcast, and you and I spoke about this, but for those watching, I had two theses. One is, just as a financial professional, as a real estate broker in the industry, we should be doing 10 times the reverse mortgages we are, meaning we have 10 times the customers that should have the product that don't for various reasons. They either get a line of credit they shouldn't get, or they're suffering with debt they shouldn't have, or they don't have access to the equity in the way that they should. 10 times, number one. Number two, that the problem is the lack of education. And I really believe that those of you, I guess us, I'm not an originator, but those of us that educate the public about this and reach a large number are going to benefit by changing that number. So let's talk a bit about, how do you get people even be open to talking about it? Like you asked the question, if you're, and you said the financial planner said it was negative. But some of them are just going to throw you out of the room if they hear you do reverse mortgages, right? They're going to assume you're ripoff artists. So how do you get through that to get the opportunity to go deeper with it?
Well, Bill, that's a great question, and I'm still working on it. So I do monthly webinars where I invite people and I try to get it. And really, what it is, I'm an old-fashioned guy. I do one at a time stuff, right? So for example, I know a financial planner, right? And I just hooked up with them. And right after I hooked up with him, we talked about it, and I educated him. I go, hey, is it possible I can do a webinar for your office? Is there other people that can benefit from that? So it's always the same thing. Who do you know? And you have to ask for the business. It's no different. Right. And by the way, for those that work with real estate offices, and I personally don't work with a lot of them, but here's my tip of the day for you. Walk in, go out there, talk to somebody in an office that and say, can I talk to your manager? So I'd like to do a reverse for purchase, group meeting, office meeting, and show people how they can get not only one transaction but two transactions. And not many people are doing that. And you can get in front of. And by the way, it's really funny. Every time I do one of these workshops, they always have somebody personal they know that I can help. Every time. It's not, not only clients, but oh yeah, my mom, it's always that, right? So you use that as your reason to get in there and you focus on reverse purchase, but then you talk about other purposes of reverse mortgages. And you just go deep into that. You get names and numbers and you just one at a time. Who do you know? Who do you know? Remember, who was that? Was that Greg Frost, your friend of yours? Didn't he say, who do you know? Maybe it was Jim McMahon. But they said, hey, who do you know, right? Who do you know? People want to help you.
So one of the things that really pushed me to be passionate about this product was I had a client who their mother owned a house in the Palisades. And it was an older house, classic case of a old house would be a tear down worth $2 million then. And she needed to go into a, adult facility. She was widowed, and they were going to move her to their house in Vegas temporarily to transition her into, and then they were going to sell the house and take the money and pay for the. And while they did that, and I talked to them in like November and said, look, these realtors talking about staging, all this, it's nonsense. Just sell the house, put the money in the bank. They didn't do that. The house burns down. And like many houses there's not much insurance value because the house wasn't worth anything. The lot was worth $2 million. It would have been scraped to be rebuilt. Had they had a reverse mortgage for $500,000 or $1 million, if they had a line of credit, a HECM, they'd write a check and be able to pull that money out. Had they had a reverse mortgage over the years and paid it down, they could write a check and pull that money out, regardless of the status of the house. But it really got me thinking, this is a product that has so many different uses. It's like a toolbox. It's not one tool. It's a toolbox of ways you can use this. And yet you need somebody who's an expert to look at your individual situation and tell you how this toolbox can be used, or if it can be used. If not this, there's other tools as well. So I think part of it is it requires really a deeper understanding, and that's where I think somebody like you who works with financial planners fits in. So does the financial planner kind of pitch the solution to the customer? Does the financial planner turn over the customer to you and you do a deeper dive and then come back with the solutions and you work on it?
It can be either or. It depends on the relationship the financial planner or the CPA has with the client. A lot of times they say, Mark, just take care of it, and I do it. Sometimes they want to be involved. I had a situation the other day. Somebody came, they're running out of money, they need money. And by the way, we have traditional loan officers on the call here that want to get in reverse. Here's one reason you probably want to do that is because they came to me and say, okay, they had trouble qualifying. There's income issues always time when you're dealing with seniors in many cases. They're running out of money. Their credit could be an issue. There's a million issues that, because of my background and what we do, is I'm able to present all kinds of options to them. Reverse mortgage second, line of credit, reverse mortgage. Then I also present forward mortgages too, conventional. So I'll say, okay, but if you don't want to do that, we can do a cash out loan or a line of credit or a second. So I believe in giving people options. I don't believe in selling. I never have. So I'll consult with the financial advisor saying, here's all your options. And then it's usually, I'll just kind of indicate this is what I believe, but it's really their choice, right? And I educate the educator. That's kind of what I've always done. And
Nice. And so one of the people that need to be educated are our colleagues, competitors, is the industry in general. I saw you at, I think, one of the great resources, and it's really unusual. I'm a real estate agent. We have 10 million designations that aren't worth anything for the most part. A designation as a realtor just means you took a class 4 years ago, but you have no idea what you're talking about. But I saw you at the National Reverse Mortgage Lender Association regional meeting. And, I thought before I went there, because I started interviewing people from that list, almost exclusively, they were all top-notch, professional, committed, serious. And going to that event that you and I were at, we were acquainted, I was really impressed with the quality of the material and the quality of the participation. Everybody was participating. And so talk a little bit about your association with Normala and how that helps you, I think, as an originator, as you continue to grow in this product and as this product continues to change.
Yeah, first of all, the product, as you said, Bill, changes, the things change. And frankly, I'm amazed at the limited participation we have. I think the participation that's there is great. And the people, like you said, are ultimately professional and they care about what they do. And I think most of them have the right mindset and purpose in mind, like I do, educate people on doing that.
Yes.
But it's interesting, just like, well, let's talk about the industry for a minute. Just like it's hard for us to get, how do I say this, volume or just penetration into the market on people understanding the product. It's hard to get loan officers to understand it as well, and they don't want to put the time in. But maybe that goes back to your first comment earlier thing, saying nobody wants to put the time in. And it is a different product. for sure.
Right.
I mean, you have to understand that, the pros and cons and why somebody should be in it. And, if somebody thinks a reverse mortgage is the perfect solution for everything, they're absolutely wrong.
Right.
But if somebody thinks a reverse mortgage or one type of the product could be help, absolutely it can at times. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. How do you scale this up? How do we get more penetration? How do you get people more acceptable of the products? And how do you get people not? The other thing is, you got to remember, a lot of people, you did it for the wrong reasons too, right? They'd say, oh, the first reason, number one reason you should not do a reverse mortgage. You know what that is?
That you need it.
No, because it seems like is you shouldn't be playing the arbitrage of the interest rates. You shouldn't be getting. Somebody says, oh, I can get, like take 300 grand out and I can make you 10% or 12% or using it for an investment. Absolutely. Actually, I think that's against a lot of guidelines, against a lot of laws. But that's the number one you shouldn't do this, right? So right away people say, well, if I can't do that, maybe I shouldn't do a reverse, right? But there's so many reasons to do a reverse. It's to really help people retire comfortably. It's help people to live, help people to use their equities, help people to do their retirement. And our job is to educate people on that kind of stuff.
So to the originators who might be watching this, who do a couple deals or struggling a little bit and are considering doing reverse mortgages, I tell them the first thing they should do is take every customer they've ever done a loan for, check public records and see, because you can go online, a title company will give you the app. If you don't have one, call me, I'll put you together the title rep. Pull up the property and see, do they have the property in a trust or not? And if not, call those that don't and say, are you aware of the opportunity of estate planning and how it can protect your equity, limit taxes, help you in succession? And just ask the question, are you aware of it? And someone will say, yeah, but I don't really know anybody. Find somebody to refer them to. Those that have one, say, hey, notice you have one. Are you happy with who did it for you? And they're going to say, no, he died, retired, she's quit, she's gone, or we don't like them, or yeah, we think he's great. And if they're great, now you have somebody you can refer to, ask to be introduced to them. Every originator who's ever done a loan in the last 5 years, 10 years, would have permission to do this. Public record information, you're calling your own customer. And I feel like that's how you beat Facebook and Google ads, is by leveraging your relationships. I know in your business, when we talk to you, Mark, you have financial planners. Some of your business, not all of it, are people you've worked with 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Nobody's going to get a Google ad and pry that person off of you because they know you and trust you and like you. And it just seems to me that the originators who are struggling just overlook really what's right in front of them. Now, I know you coach agents, you're a branch manager as well as a producer yourself. Am I missing something here? Why do originators not? And I know I'm a real estate agent. Why not call every real? If you're a purchase real estate originator, why would you call every realtor you did a deal with? Even the listing agents, just call and say, "Can I help you with anything?" I get 0 phone calls. I've closed a couple hundred transactions in the last 5 years. 0 from originators.
Well,
what happened?
It's the old saying, if you don't go or do it, you know what's going to happen. You stay at home all day, you know what's going to happen. If you go out somewhere and do something, you don't know what's going to happen. And I don't think people don't want to do it. Can you imagine if you spent 2 hours a day using your strategy you just presented to them, or just touch base strategy or loan anniversary strategy, or anything, just to talk to 2 hours worth of clients or referral partners? Do you think your phone would be lit up with things to do?
Just ones that you like. You don't have to call all of them. The ones you don't like, take them off your list. Just the half that maybe you like. Why would you not call people that you like already?
And you could, I love the strategy you just put out there, Bill. I think that's a phenomenally good strategy, and I think that should be used. Or it could be, I have a new product, or I just want to touch base, or are you guys downsizing? Or there's so many reasons to touch base with people, but let's start with option one, touch base.
Well, in reverse mortgages, you have this requirement once a year on the FHA ones, I think, to certify annually.
All reverse do that. They will check if you don't respond. Matter of fact, we had a client that was getting foreclosed on, and because she thought everything went junk mail.
Of course.
Sure.
Of course she does. So why would you not call her on 11th? Hey, by the way, you're gonna get your annual thing. Look out for it. It's not junk. And just until they tell you they got it, call them all. There are people who will tell me it's too much work. And I say, well, how many reverse mortgages have you done your entire career? 10, 50? 50 would not even be one a week.
Well,
how much work is it?
Hey, Bill, you know what's more amazing to me than anything else? Because I'm inherently I'm going to try to do the best I can for the time I have. right? That's just who I am. So explain this to me. You're a loan officer. You have a couple hundred good clients, right? That are, your clients you've done loans from in the past. And their age is growing. They have parents, they have grandparents, whatever the case is, right? How in the heck are every loan officer out there not marketing a reverse mortgage product, even if they don't want to do it themselves? Most companies
have
inside experts that do this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that is to me the most easiest, lowest fruit you can grab. I mean, it's just like, hey, let's market. We do these. Do you know anything about them? There's lots of material out there. I've never understood why people won't take time to just say, hey, yeah, we do these things, and even if you don't want to do them yourself, that's fine. But you should have resources that do them for you.
Well, I would say we do them. I don't personally even do any originations. I would have somebody call you if they're appropriate to meet with you and talk to them about why would I not want that. And by the way, some are going to call you, and you're going to help them understand that it's the best opportunity for them really is not a mortgage, but to sell the house. Fine. That works for me too. I'm glad to sell the house. It's just, if you're not in conversation with people, you just don't get those chances. And what else do people ask me? Well, how do I find time to do these podcasts? I'm talking to Mark Klein for half an hour. How can I not afford to talk to you? What am I doing that's so important that I'm not talking to you, right? And same with our clients.
Yeah, it's definitely a job. But again, it goes back to this: are people willing to put the time in? Are they willing to be proactive? Are they willing to do those things? And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, like if everyone wants to sit in their basement or sit in their house and just hope for the phone to ring, it's not a very good strategy. So.
When you and I met, one of our friends, mentors who's passed on is Greg Frost. And the thing about Greg was the marketing he did, none of it was really rocket science. It all was a little corny because that's kind of his style and his flavor. It was a little, he grew up in San Gabriel Valley where I used to live, and he lived in New Mexico. But it was all systematized, right? And I think as an originator, if you called everybody you ever did a deal for the rest of your career, I promise you have nothing else to do the rest of your life but call people you like to talk to, and then they'll have a problem and you solve it and you get paid. And that's really, what the goal is for all of us. I think that the best originators I know this day still are on the phone. They just call their past clients because, they maybe do some advertising and get some new leads coming in, but usually those go to the newer guys, not to the person running the business. The guy with the business is working with referral sources and with their past clients primarily.
Yeah, no, it's true. You remember Greg Frost's famous saying, right? When he used to sell his system at the end of a workshop, he goes, I sell it for $20, right?
I answered that question from the first time he asked me that question. I said, because they help make a $30 bill.
Exactly. I thought that was it. I'll always remember that. Love Greg, missing you.
He was the greatest. I do miss him so much. But really, you look back now, so let's take that for a second. You and I went to some exotic locations with Todd Duncan. We went to, I think, Hawaii together, maybe went to Nevis, I think.
Were you at Nevis?
Nevis in the West Indies, and maybe we also went to Hawaii, I think, and what was the name of the? Lanai. Where these exotic locations, but at the end of the day, all of the processes then are no different than today for the most part, right? Keeping contact with people, having systems and procedures and processes.
Yeah, it is. And the people that know how to use, the great database systems today, they can even get a leg up and double down on that stuff. But it still doesn't make up for calling people, talking to people, and having conversations.
And I think the other part is that was true then that is harder to come by now, but still very important, is the power of camaraderie. I think that the fact that you and I were going to meet once a year kind of drove us to want to be successful so that other people would say, hey, Mark, what are you doing? I saw you last year as an average guy. Now you're doing better than average. Tell me about what you're working on. And I think we all kind of need that competitive pressure to push ourselves or pick us up when we're down. And, with COVID, that changed. With all the automation to some degree, that's changed, but I do think that that's the solution in the long run, is that camaraderie and working with a company or team.
Yeah, no, I've always attributed my success to having these mortgage mastermind groups that I met in these web seminars. I mean, and most of the people were top producers or better producers than I was, and we'd go to each other's offices, we'd see it, we'd go to their houses, we'd spend time with them, and we used to share everything, and that actually shaped my career more than anything else I could think of. And I remember I didn't believe back then you can do so many transactions of one person by themselves, right? And sure, you can't, but you sure do it with a team and systems.
Right.
But that was exposed to me, and once I got that exposed, I remember I went from doing 4 or 5 transactions a month that was taking me 14-hour days to doing 20, 25 transactions a month, and coaching my kids baseball and on baseball and soccer teams. It was awesome.
Nice. One of the things I saw the other day was Housing Wire has a podcast, and they're interviewing the leadership of Mr. Cooper, and they bought Redfin, but it's owned by Rocket companies, or whatever they're Rocket. I hate those companies because the essence of them is to bully and kind of trick people into coming to them based on their marketing. They don't have a reputation that builds a relationship. They're the opposite. Yet, what are they touting? They're buying the servicing to put the information of the real estate, of the mortgage broker on the statement to help enhance the relationship between the broker and that customer. Recognition that for all the Facebook ads, Google ads, and marketing dollars behind them, that bond we have with customers is the real value. And you've been in this business a long time, leveraging on that, and I have in my business as well. And I think for all the originators out there, that's the key to keep focus on. So give me one tip. I gave you one that I see as an outsider. I'm not in the mortgage industry every day. I'm on the periphery. Give me one tip that you would say to a mortgage originator who's struggling a bit, or even better, a financial professional who's trying to build his business as well. What's one thing that they should do to deepen the relationship with their customers, to keep that relationship so the customer calls them with problems, not somebody else?
Well, I think it depends on what business you're in, right? If you're a financial planner, they should be calling their clients quarterly for sure. I mean, going with the market issues, or when there's a big dip or craziness in the market like we had a little while ago, that's a great time to call your clients, calm them down, and just have discussions with them. If you're a mortgage originator, you just got to, again, I think you hit it on the head. You just need to come up with any reason. It doesn't matter. Just to call your clients and touch base and just show you care. I mean, it's. I don't think there's any secret sauce. I think it's just, showing your care, staying in contact with them. And also, well, the other secret sauces I've seen, and some people are afraid to tell people what they do. They'll call, they'll talk about your kids, talk about everything else, and all right, thanks, right? As opposed to saying, hey, you know what? Just if you are going to move, or you do need some cash flow, or if you know of anybody that needs whatever it is, let people know that you're there to help. And I'll use my old, I've been a member of Country Club since 1997. I remember I came from very humble beginnings. I remember I started doing really well right when I started seeing you and joined the Country Club. And I remember when I first joined, I go, I'm going to make it a business club, meaning I went out once a week with clients. Regardless, I'd always make my calls. I'd always take 2 to 3 clients out every time with me, whether a financial planner, a client, realtor, whatever, it didn't matter. And then I'd also go once a week and play at the club and meet new members, and I'd always let people know what I did. I didn't force myself on them, but hey, yeah, I'm a mortgage banker. If you ever want me to review anything for you, see anything for you, I'm here to help. And that's always been my strategy.
Nice.
And give out good information. Be a giver, and good things usually happen. Well,
I think if I could kind of rephrase a little bit of what you're saying, which is market in a way that you enjoy doing those activities, right? If you enjoy cold calling, nothing wrong with it. If you enjoy calling people call people you know. If you enjoy going to a country club or playing golf or tennis club, take them, go play tennis, go play whatever it is that you enjoy doing, and that's the way to generate the business. I know for me, when I moved into probate real estate, I used to go to court every day. I loved it. Now, most people think, going to court, putting a suit and tie. I wouldn't have done my whole life, but for the 3 or 4 years that I was doing it, I loved it. It was a lot of fun for a period of time.
What was the number one thing you did, Bill, to grow your practice? Way back when.
Going to court. When I relaunched in sales out of management, and I knew when to focus on probate, and I took a class on it, and the teacher challenged us to go to court once to check it out, and I went there once. I was just blown away by what I saw, and I didn't understand it all. And went back the next day and the next day. And I said, well, I'm going to go for the rest of the week and then the rest of the month. And I said, I really enjoyed this. It's in Los Angeles, there's a lot of unsafe places, but the court has armed, sheriffs and metal detectors, and there's air conditioning, they had good Wi-Fi, there's a Starbucks there. But more importantly, there are people there in the room looking for business and looking for help. And it was intellectually stimulating, and I enjoyed it. So I started going every day to meet people, meeting attorneys, meeting investors, meeting families that needed to sell houses. And it was just a gas. I loved it. And I do think that, if you enjoy doing something, it wasn't always fun. Going to work in the morning, going to court, driving there in LA traffic at times was difficult some days. Rain some days is frustrating. But I would just say that, I loved being there. I loved the engagement part of the process. And so for me, after, going there for a year, I was an expert in what I was doing. And all of a sudden people saw me differently. So that was the main thing I did.
And when you went there a lot, so I'm assuming you met a lot of probate attorneys and estate planning attorneys and I'm guessing some clients. I don't know. Again, I've never been to probate. I can answer that question.
All of that. I think, my goal, I would dress like an attorney, wear a dark suit, white shirt, Brooks Brothers, silk tie. I carried a briefcase, a roller like the attorneys did. I really wanted to look like an attorney. I'm older, and so, gray hair, kind of look like the average kind of attorney, or at least I should say it played to my advantage. Attorney looking older looks wiser. A young girl has a challenge, but I didn't have that challenge. So for me, I played that strength. I had business cards made that looked like attorneys' business cards, separate from my realtor cards. And I just went there and watched and learned and met, waiting outside. Hey, what are you here for? And I introduced myself and also being quiet. I'd learned so much that when people had problems, I could solve the problem. And I think that's the key thing for me was that, if somebody's going to learn reverse mortgages, you don't need to know it right away. Like you said, you can call your customers, find somebody who has questions, and refer them to somebody like you who's an expert in that field. But if you're going to do them, you better read the guidelines and really know it, and read the documents your customers are going to sign and know what it says. So that when somebody asks me a question, like on a probate today, I always laugh because it's on the form. When you write an offer as a realtor, there's a separate form, the addendum for the offer, and there's a separate addendum for the listing. And it's obvious to me that 99% of the realtors never read the form because almost every question I ever get asked is on the form itself. It's not complicated. It's all written out. So I would just say that, if you really want to learn something, learn the guidelines. I remember when I don't know if you were there then, Todd Duncan had a top producers event in San Diego. It was his first one. And I was on the panel and he said, give everybody in the audience an idea that doesn't cost money they can use to improve their business. And I thought about it. So I know the perfect one. In those days, it was get the 4155, which is the FHA guidebook. And those days you had to go to like Kinko's to make a copy of it. Make your own copy of the book and read it. Like this is what you're selling your customers. Read the lending guidelines. And that way, when the customer has a question, like about their paycheck or their bank statement, you know the answer. And that would create a distinction between you and the other originators. And I would say the same thing. If I was a reverse originator wanting to do that business, the first thing I'd do is get the company guidelines. I'd get the company documents. I'd read through it and know, and have resources like someone like you to call, or maybe a underwriter or a manager who I could call on and know those answers. But I'd want to learn the material so I could be of value.
Bill, back to, what I learned from like Greg Frost. Remember what his job title was? Remember what he used to tell you what his job title was?
I don't.
What's the job? He goes, I'm a leader. I'm a lead generator. That is my job.
Yeah.
That's what he always thought his job was, is generating leads and opportunities. And I don't know if it's that much different today. You got to have leads and opportunities, right? So the question you're going to say is, okay, so it's interesting that you mentioned that. I think that there's a million ways to show you're professional and get leads, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you might want to be the biggest expert in it, but I know people that are total experts in loans and can do loans in the back of their head. It doesn't matter reverse, forward, conventional, but they can't get the phone to ring. Right?
Well, you bring something.
Then I know the exact opposite. A couple people come to mind. I'm not going to mention their names, but that are the most social, gifted, nice people in the world. But they can screw up a glass of water. They have no idea how to get a loan done.
Right. Well, I was in Greg's office, to use that as an example. He knew how to underwrite, how to pre-qualify a buyer.
He knew it all.
He knew everything about guidelines on pre-qualifying. Now, and he had a system, and he wrote notes, and he'd hand it off to somebody else, and he wouldn't have to touch it again. But he knew it. He knew it cold. He also was focused every day on getting the phone to ring, and there's a million different things he had going on to get people to walk in his office in his case. And you're right. And I think, it's interesting because when I deal, my number one referral source are attorneys and fiduciaries who are often attorneys or CPAs. And people are scared to call them because they're so busy. But one thing I know is those top people in those businesses, like the top probate attorney in LA, the top trust attorney in LA, the top fiduciary, they spend 30% of their day, 40% of their day on business generation. Like they're the rainmaker.
Right.
Now they do have to do legal stuff, and they have documents and signing and reading and all that. They go to court, but nobody produces business better than them. They're the Greg Frost of their firm. And so if you can help them generate business, they're going to do whatever you can. That's why I do the podcast, because I have attorneys who wouldn't give me the time of day, but if I can get them in front of 1,000 views on YouTube, they're like, yeah, Paul, I'll come on your podcast. I'll come on every week if you have me every week.
Yeah,
and so I think,
in addition, I'm assuming they'll take your podcast and market it to their people as well. Right?
I hope.
Yeah.
I make it easy for them to do that, but I think that you have to do it in a way that promotes them. And like with your business, I hope today we're giving good information to help financial professionals that you work with to refer business to you. I think also other originators that work with you, or should be working with you, or consumers. But I think the key is, as long as you're educating people and you're respecting them and coming from a place of giving and service, it all works together. It all works out at the end, I think.
I would agree.
Well, look, we got a little longer than I planned on, but I've known you for a long time. It was fun to catch up with you in Irvine this month, a couple of weeks ago, and it's always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll talk again going forward. Now, Mark, I know that your website, Citywide Home Mortgage, we have your phone number, and as well we have a banner down below with your phone number, 805-702-8990, and your email is mark.klein, Klein, at citywidehmforhomemortgage.com. Best way to get a hold of you that way?
Yeah, email's usually great. You can always call me and leave a message too. My website's probably not where it is. I just changed my back offices by about 2 months ago, so I'm still working on that. But clearly, I'm always here to help. I've always been a giver, and that's kind of where I'm at. And I'm always an open book. And Bill, I really appreciate reconnecting with you. It's funny when I saw Bill Gross as a speaker. I go, I wonder if that's the Bill I haven't seen in a long time. And I was so happy. It was awesome. And you did such a good job. So.
That was a lot of fun. It was a challenging experience. I don't know if you noticed, but the guy before me was like 11 minutes long, and I'm thinking, well, do I go long? And so, but it was a lot of fun, and I always enjoy working with different professionals, because I think when you cross pollinate, you see how they do business, and you learn ideas on how to help you with your business. At the end of the day, I'm a business, and I'm not a salesperson. I'm a business person. I'm the salesperson in my business, but I think you have to focus on the business part of it. And that was a great experience. So again, Mark, always a pleasure to chat with you. I'm sure we'll get a chance to chat again soon. And thank you again. Appreciate your time.
Bill, appreciate you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much, man. Great connecting.
And for everybody today, this was the Reverse Mortgage Podcast. We get together every week with top producers, management, vendors in the business of reverse mortgage on how to work more effectively in supporting our customers, as well as how to be more effective in our business. If I can help, I'm at Bill Gross Probate on social media. Call, text, or email. And then if you have suggestions or comments, please put it below, as well as if you have somebody who you think I should interview or you'd like to be interviewed, please let me know. I'm always looking for more guests. As always, make today your best day ever. Thanks so much.